We have Mr. Manish Sharma, Group Finance Controller and Divisional CFO ESG for Oasis Investment Company, Shirawi. Manish is a chartered accountant and company secretary by qualification with over 20 years of experience in the industry. Manish started his career as a consultant with PwC India and grew progressively, straddling diverse industries, including a Fortune 500 IT multinational, financial services conglomerate, a prestigious luxury real estate developer in UAE, and currently working with one of the largest family-owned conglomerates in Dubai. Manish has steered high-performance teams in large, highly established global service industries, as well as startups and brick-and-mortar family-run enterprises. He likes to call himself a strategist, a turnaround expert, and a growth catalyst who likes to influence business leaders to aim higher and achieve more. Manish will be presenting on Digital CFO Objectifying the Digital Business Strategy. Over to you, Manish.
Thank you, Diksha. Am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Thank you. And first of all, I would like to thank you and the StraTech team for inviting me on this platform to share my experience with the digital evolution in my organization and my experience. And without ado, I would just like to share my screen. Is my screen visible?
Yes, it's visible.
Yeah, okay, thank you. Okay, so hi all. I would like to start this discussion today, which is a very, very important discussion for all the CFOs and budding CFOs, the digital shift and the digital CFO. So before I start, I would like to do a quick exercise. And I would like to ask the panel, simple question: how many objects do you see on the screen? If you can type your answers. Okay, so 1. How many objects you see now? If you can type your answers in the chat window, please. Okay. Now, how many objects do you see on your screen now? I think most of the attendees would agree that suddenly the number of objects are too many for them to count and respond. And this is the world that we are living in. All of a sudden, the data points have been increased so much that it has become virtually impossible for the traditional CFOs to analyze the data, manage the data, analyze the data, and present any meaningful analysis from the data. This is the complexity that we are in. Suddenly, in the last few years, this is the trend that we are seeing. On top of this, with the post-pandemic, post-COVID, we are suddenly in a new environment also. So if you look at the current workplace, suddenly we see ourselves in a virtual world. So we were living in a connected world, in a physical environment, and now suddenly we are in a digital world and working virtually. So you see people are working from different locations, not physically present. So what is the impact of this on the CFOs? So there are many impacts, but I would like to just give you one example. There used to be a saying in the management that management by walking around. So a lot of CFOs had a lot of data, but a lot of information that the CFOs used to collect was through their corridor chats with their colleagues. So going out, meeting their colleagues in a sales department, marketing department, in the production, and you talk to people and you find out what's going on apart from the data that you have. Right now, because we are living in a virtual world, those talks are not there anymore. And most of the time when we meet in a virtual world through Zoom, these are more business specific discussions. So the personal discussion, the corridor discussions, which used to give you the informal information about what's happening in the background, that information is missing. So we have huge amount of data. We are living in a virtual world, and all that is creating a huge amount of complexity in the organization. So this is where we are. look at the changing landscape of the CFOs. Currently or in the past, the CFOs were expected to be a finance leader, but now the CFOs are expected to be a business leader. CFOs used to know the cost of the company and the focus was more on the cost management and cash flow management. But suddenly the expectation from the CFO is that he should analyze the data and understand the trend and predict the future. And in the past, the CFO has a physical location to work with. There were teams, there were people whom he can interact with and get the information. Right now we are living in a virtual world and those interactions are not available. And suddenly CFO finds himself in a situation that he is being asked some questions which he thought in the past that a CDO, a chief digital officer, or a data officer will, or a data scientist will answer, or the technology officer will answer, or the CIO will answer. But right now, the expectation from the CFO is such that he is expected to be the CDO, CTO, CIO all together. So already the CFO's role was evolving, and it had moved from the data counter, a bin counter, to the information provider, to the business partner, to an advisor, and now you get this added complexity of technology. So how do we deal with? And that's the question that I asked myself a few years back, and luckily for me, I work in an organization which is quite technology savvy and forward thinking. So I had business leaders who were ready to adapt technologies, and I'm sharing my experience with you today. But I want to tell you that the biggest difficulty in most companies, most organizations is whether the business leaders are ready for technology adoption. And we'll address that issue. How CFOs can address that challenge, we'll understand that in the next slides. So let's just understand what a CFO as a CDO, what do I mean by CFO as a CDO or a chief digital officer? The chief digital officer, now the focus of the CFO has shifted from managing cost, because you can only do so much in managing cost. So the cost part has been beaten down, and we know, we have done everything that was possible. The focus is now on the growth, and the growth of the business, you understand the customer data. And so far, if you see in most of the organization, except very few, the customer data was always maintained by the sales and marketing teams, not by the CFOs. But right now, the CFOs are expected to understand the shift in the customer behavior and predict the future. That's where the biggest challenge that the CFOs are facing today. And I think that is a challenge as well as an opportunity for the CFO to see how, whether he can embrace this change and, take up this role of a CDO and reposition his value in the organization and improve not just his position in the organization, but take the organization to the next level. In this, to achieve this, there are a lot of technological shifts that are happening in the market, and CFO needs to understand how he can use the AI, the big data, the RPA, the NLPs, the clouds, the UI, etc. And we are going to cover this in the next few slides. So which are these technologies and how they can impact the CFO's world? So
Manish, I'm sorry, just to interrupt. I'm not able to see the slides. It's still on the first slide, I think.
Oh, you are on the first slide? Yeah, I have shifted already, I think, 4 or 5 slides. Okay.
Or maybe play it on the presenter mode if you can do the it's on small screen as well.
Okay, I actually moved 5 slides. Okay,
so
now coming to the 5th slide, but everything I think I have to reshare. Okay. Okay, so this is where we are. The CFO has to play the role of the CDO, and he needs to use a lot of new technologies which were not part of his role in the past. So how do we go about that? Can you see the next slide?
I can. Now it just went off.
Okay.
Yes.
Excellent. So, okay, this subject is complex and time consuming, so I will just focus on the key elements. So, there are a lot of things in the technology, and I think the biggest worry for CFOs and at least the new entrants in this role is that where to start. Okay, and this is where I think very important that, okay, we understand that there are a lot of technologies and we can do many things. The easiest way where you can have a lot of quick wins is to implement technologies like RPA, the chatbot, the machine learning, which can improve your capabilities of the finance department in a tremendous way, and also make the life of the accounts department much easier. I'll give you a very simple example from my experience. We used to have, I work for a large group of 30 plus companies, and we have 200 plus bank accounts. Doing bank reconciliation was a humongous task for us. We had a big team doing bank reconciliation on a daily basis, and still if one or two people from the team are on leave, they are sick, they are unable to come, we had a huge issue to handle. And still, although the people, even if they put in all their efforts, all the bank reconciliations are not done till the end of the day. Some are done in the morning, some in the afternoon, some in the night. And I didn't have the information, okay, how many check has bounced in a day, and if a check has bounced, are we able to take an action on that customer immediately. With implementation of RPA, I'm just giving you a live example. We have been able to achieve a situation that the robots, today we have deployed 2 robots. They work 24/7 without any leave, no complaint about weekends, annual holidays or anything. And they work in the night when so they utilize my extra spare capacity of the Oracle server. They work in the night, they produce the reports, they look at the transactions that we have entered the previous day, they download the bank statement from the bank's portal directly, they reconcile, and when I come to the office, I already have an exception report that so many clients have bounced their checks. Not only that, the robot is automatically going and blocking the customer account, so no new invoice can be generated, no new supplies can be made till that check has been paid. Not only that, the robot is automatically sending an email to the customer with copy to the sales manager that this check has bounced, please arrange to make the payment. Now you understand how many benefits we can achieve by employing this robot, which is not necessarily, he has not replaced any human in our context. It is possible to replace, but I think we have upgraded the skill of the finance people and the accounts team who are able to do much bigger, better job than what they used to do in the past. Similar way, in the month end, I used to struggle that, okay, first of all, the booking of all the accounting entries by the time we close our books itself is difficult. And then you have to produce the MIS and send it to the management. By the time you produce the MIS and your deadline is there is very little time left for you to do an analysis. We have switched from preparing MIS to a digital dashboard which is available to everybody on a click of a button, where at the month end you don't have to produce any MIS. You have already set up for each of your industries, whether it is manufacturing, service, contracting, trading, distribution. You have set up your MIS with the standard charts, graphs, your analysis, which are standard, which gives the information, okay, how much booking has happened this month, how much billing has happened this month, how much collection has happened this much, what was my outstanding in the at the beginning of the month, what is my outstanding, what was my stock level in the beginning, what is my stock level now. You can see those information without any human intervention. It has relieved my work, like I can go on a holiday during the my financial year close. So this is just an example. There are many things that you can do with the use of technologies. The data analysis to supporting the customers, understanding the customer behavior, understanding the expectation of the customer, and that's where the real value that the CFOs can add, and working very closely with the CIO in developing the future capabilities of the finance department and the organization as a whole. So there are a lot of stuff that we can do with the use of technology, but I think if you have to look at what is the priority for the CFO, I can say without doubt that managing data, understanding data, analyzing data, and using data to predict the future is the key role that the CFOs can play today. Understanding the data, the behavior, understanding the behavior or shifting behavior of the customer and predicting the future is going to be the biggest role and value addition that the CFOs can play in the future. And you can see it's not me saying this, it is the Gartner, which is the industry leading consultant. When you talk about technology, Gartner is the source that you go to, and they are telling that this is where the world is moving, and I think it is very important for CFOs to understand and adopt this shift. There are many use cases of these technologies where you can use RPA, where you can use AI, ML, blockchain. I already talked about 2 examples from the past. I will also talk about one example where, using the blockchain technology I have with my, service businesses. All my contracts are now signed digitally between both the parties. And the month-end revenue process is automated in such a way that the invoice is generated by the bot and emailed to the customer by the bot. So you can do a lot of stuff using the technology, which can ease not just your burden, but also improve the organizational performance. And that is the main aspect of using technology. I will, the time is short, so I will skip this slide. Okay, why do we focus on adopting these technologies? Key benefits of adopting all these technologies: the higher business value, enhanced decision making, reducing cost, reducing error. Most importantly, reducing error, because errors can sometimes cost you more than your actual cost. Better planning and forecasting, and I think we are moving from normal planning and forecasting to predicting and doing a lot of scenario analysis. Okay, because if you look at post-COVID, what happened? The way we used to analyze the numbers and forecast, that has completely changed. Those models are not working anymore, and nobody knows how the world is going to move. So you have to analyze, okay, if the world moves in this way, what will happen, what is the implication to your business, and if it moves in a different way, what is the implication to your business. So you need to have different scenarios planned. And why do you need to do the scenarios? Because then you need to have strategies. If things move in a particular direction, what you as an organization will do. If the shift happens in a different way, what will be the response for the organization? So instead of a knee-jerk reaction, you are much more better prepared if the shift happens in a different direction. Okay, so I think I don't have to repeat that we are now in a totally different world as CFOs and finance leaders. We are expected not just to be the traditional bookkeeper, reporting, managing cash flows and finances and all of that. You are expected to become the chief marketing officer, analyze the customer data and understand the customer behavior and tell us how the customer is thinking about the organization and where the customer is looking out, if they are looking out somewhere else. Look at the the huge amount of data and look at what other new things that you can come out with and which can influence the decision where to invest, which product to invest, which markets to invest, which type of customer segment to focus on. So we all realize that, okay, we had all this marketing, sales, HR, they are focusing on their jobs and there is a cost that is almost fixed for them to achieve the results that we expect. For example, take the HR data. They have to recruit, and to recruit for each resource, maybe they will have to analyze 30-50 CVs to find out those 5 CVs which will be placed for interview. Now, it takes a lot of time for a human to download those CVs and analyze those CVs. Now you can adopt, you can use technology to scan the data of all the 100 CVs that you receive against the key parameters that you define, and the technology will give you say 5 or 10 CVs which you can focus, and you can find the right resource that you want. It can reduce your work 90%, your manual work 90%, and improve your success by almost 50% or more. That's what we have seen in our organization. CFOs are expected to play the role of a CIO and CTO, and we talked about this. So what do we need? If the CFOs are expected to play these many new roles, what really we need? And I think if one thing that all of my audience can take away today, I would like to say that the biggest shift required is in the mindset of the CFO. I know I can tell you from my experience and my colleagues and others that I move around with, I can tell you that the biggest hurdle is not the technology. The saying that technology we don't understand, or the data is so much it's very difficult, or that data is not structured, all that can be solved. The biggest issue that the CFOs, at least the old people 40, 50 plus, they are facing today is the mindset issue. If the CFOs start thinking, okay, this technology change is not a challenge, but it is an opportunity. It is an opportunity for CFOs to prove themselves and take this as an opportunity for them to progress beyond their current role, beyond the analyzer of the data to the predictor of the future. Okay. Like as I mentioned in the earlier slides, that the data currently has been managed by in 2-3 different pockets. The CFO had the biggest data, which is the financial data, the actual data, but there was a data sitting with the sales and marketing team, and there was data sitting with the CIO, and all of them are grappling with the change in technology. Okay, and everybody wants to be in that role of the chief data scientist. But I think because CFOs are already managing the largest volume of data, they are in the right position. If they make technology as their friend, to take that role, grab that role, and make their position even more stronger in the organization. Instead of looking in the past data, looking only at the cost and how the business performance has been, we can try focusing on how the market is shifting, where the customer is moving, and how can we align our organization to the changing need and changing mood of the customer. And that's where I think the biggest shift has to come in the CFO's mindset, that okay, technology is not a barrier, it's not a challenge, it's my friend. I would like to understand the technology and use it to my advantage, to reposition myself, and also take my organization to the next level. Data is the new gold, and all of us need to spend time to understand the new technologies. And sometimes as a CFO, you don't have to really master the technology in the sense that you don't have to be the coder, you don't have to write the codes, but you should understand how these things, which technology you can use where, and enable and increase the skill set in your department. You should have people in your department who can do a lot of analysis themselves instead of depending on the IT department. And that's where we can be the highest value generator. And that's all I have. I think that I was given 20 minutes time, so I think I'm within that. And Diksha, I'm open to any question if the audience has any question.
So we have a question, Manish, from Sharat Krishnamurthy. He asks, how much does it cost to deploy the 2 robots that do the back reconciliations? Are these ongoing costs associated with the robots? If you would like to answer that.
Yeah, sure. So, I'll tell you a very funny thing. As CFOs, many times we are very conservative. We don't want to be the first people to start using any new technology because, we want to see a proven case where it has been implemented. But luckily for me, and I spent first 10 years of my life in IT industry, and my organization was also prepared. So we were the early movers when this robotic technology came 3 years back, when IBM wanted to do a use case and to prove that RPAs really work. we were the early adopter. So IBM themselves came and did a huge case. So the bank reconciliation that I talked about, we only paid for the license. The entire effort of implementation was free for us. We had this early mover advantage, and I think many times this is what we need, the shift in the mindset. Many times if you try to adopt the technology, you can get a great bargain from the technology providers. So it's a fixed cost, not much. For the two robots, we are paying say less than 100,000, and it's a fixed cost, and they will work for years.
Thank you, Manish. I hope that answers your question. Thank you so much, Manish, for joining us. I think you left us with a very interesting thought. We have to see, CFOs need to see technology more as an opportunity and not as a hurdle or a challenge. So something definitely for everyone to take away. Thank you so much for joining us today, for taking this time. Really appreciate it. Thank you, Manish.
Yeah, thank you, Diksha. And I think I got this message that my screen was not moving, so I don't know if I was moving the slides, if people could see it or not. Apologies for that.
No worries. I think maybe if anyone requires, if you'd be okay with it, we can also share your presentation with them.
Okay, happy to do that. Thank you. Okay.
Thank you.